Thank you very much indeed. Nisa of Oxfam India, Tom Thomas, who's a good friend from Praxis and convener CRW, Namit Agrawal of Oxfam India, Sri Kiran Karnik, who is the board chair of the Oxfam India, Nick from CSR Asia, Biraf, a very good friend of mine who has been around for a very, very long time, supporting and helping each one of us, and everybody else sitting in this hall. I am truly, truly delighted to be here today, and I would like to thank Oxfam India to have invited me to share some of my thoughts and ideas, which would be purely official and there would be nothing personal about it. And I would truly like to applaud Oxfam India for having taken this very unique initiative. And this initiative is unique in more than one ways. And I would like to sort of cite three very relevant contexts where this whole convening of today becomes very, very unique, very important, and significant from the point of view of moving forward. The first one is that we were together in the month of July in Addis, where we were thinking very, very loud, not only with the governments, but also with the civil society and the private sector, as to where will the money come from to finance the development, because money remains a critical issue, and this is being highlighted by everybody, by civil society, by the government, and also by the private sector, which I will broadly refer to as business, because it is only India and a few other countries where we have the distinction between private sector and the public sector. But it would be only reasonable to call this whole thing as the business. And the first thing that was being talked in Addis was, it was the middle of July, and the whole idea was that how do we really think tank, talk to each other, and see to it as to where will the money come from to finance 17 goals which the UN was going to launch on 27th of November. No, it was September. The second thing is that we now have 17 goals very well rolled out by the UN, and as Nisa said, 139 countries have ratified those goals and agreed to follow them through and report back. Because these goals now are universal and they are fully aligned with national development priorities as well. And therefore, I, for one, always believe that these 17 goals might be the UN goals, but they find a fairly deep resonance with the local or the national development priorities. And therefore, 17 goals are only the piece on which political consensus has been developed. Third reason why I call this convening of today very, very unique is because we are also going to meet in Paris very, very soon, which will be happening in December. And the whole idea there is going to be, again, not only talk about the climate commitments by countries, but also try and figure out how will those commitments be fulfilled by each one of us, and where will the money come in from. And therefore, I'm going to take a very, very limited point in a limited time as to where will the money to finance the development goals would be coming from. And this is anybody's guess. Now I would like to make three very quick statements. The first one is that in India, which people say India is the first country in the world to have mandated 2% CSR. It is not so. I mean, there are other countries which have taken the lead in the past, but India tried to sort of do it in a very, very unique fashion, which has made India as a country to become the first country in the world to have mandated 2% CSR through Companies Act 2013. The second fact is that we now have a very gradual withdrawal of the state from the welfare activities, and this is what I said in 2011 in Australia, that in 3 to 4 years from now, which was then 2011, that most of the governments, including the government in India, will be withdrawing from the welfare activities, And we will really need to see as to how are those gaps or voids going to be filled in by the non-state actors, which I mean by saying is the private sector in particular, and again the business to denote it broadly, and what would be the kind of corresponding role of civil society and other non-state actors. The third thing which is very, very significant to talk about is that we also have to see the paradigm shifts which are happening not only within the governments but also within the civil society and the businesses as a whole. If I were to give you one example of a survey which Global Compact and Accenture did about 2 years back, it very, very clearly and very evidently highlighted the fact that gone are the days when the governments used to do everything and everybody else used to hold them to account, but now the same fix is going to be on the civil society and the businesses to be able to stand up to what they're supposed to do, and not only supposed to do and do the things, but also hold themselves to account. And I think the CSR law, the provisions in section 135 of Companies Act 2013 very clearly demonstrates that. And if you were to really look at the government, I mean, the government is very, very important in a democratic setup, and that applies more to a country like India. Businesses are very, very important because they create jobs, employment, bring private capital, and deploy it for various purposes. Civil society is very important because they have to up the ante on these two and hold them to account. And therefore, all the three sectors are very, very important. I often continue to think that if these sectors are so important, why don't they really come together, talk to each other, dialogue, and try and figure out the common agenda on which they are going to move the pathway, because all the three elements or the sectors claim, if you will, to help support the people in the community. It could be by creating employment or helping them out in some other important way. But the fact of the matter is that each one of these sectors are very, very critical when it comes to helping and supporting the people of the community on the ground. And therefore, I often think that why is it not that these three pillars or these three sectors consider coming together, working out on a common agenda, working out a common pathway, or the common strategies with regard to how are they really going to approach to help the people on the ground. So you look at the government, you look at 2%, you look at civil society, you look at the businesses, everybody therefore becomes very important from the point of view of what they claim to stand for and what they're actually supposed to be doing. And therefore, I don't really see any divergence of opinion or factual context between and amongst these three very, very key players as to why should they not really sit together, talk to each other, find some common threads, take them up, create the pathway, go ahead and support the people on the ground, because this is what everybody else is supposed to be doing. And I can tell you, when we met in Addis, or when we are going to be meeting in Paris in December, the whole talk is about the limited point. Where do we really get the money from to finance the development? I mean, be these 17 goals or climate commitments by the countries or anything else. I mean, we will really need to figure out where is the money going to come in from, and that is a billion-dollar question. And I say it not because I'm saying it with context to the country that we live in, but this is the kind of talk of the town globally. And the talk of the town is, where will the money come in from? And I can tell you three things very, very straightforward. Governments are broke. Be it India, be it anywhere else, governments don't really have money. Public exchequer is broke. There is no money. Most of the governments are in deficit, or they have taken loans from multilateral or world organizations. So don't really put too much of hope in the governments to be able to put the money forward and use that money to support the aspirations and seeing to it that equality is ensured and we cut poverty at the global level to the level of zero, and that is not really going to happen. ODA money is drying up. There is no money with the ODA, and therefore the ODA cannot also be held accountable with regard to bring the money, straightforward on the table and support people on the ground and help them move up, both on equality, inclusion, and rest of it. And therefore, the money that is going to be coming in from is going to be coming in from the businesses. And businesses will not really be as easy as most of us probably consider going to them, talking to them, and they get convinced and they put a lot of money on the ground. We heard Mr. Rahul Bajaj in one of his interviews on the film that we saw. He is very, very clear, and I think there can't be anybody clearer than what he was in the film, where he says that, most often we try to use philanthropy in a similar way that we use the CSR, and this is a trend globally. Every business will have all these two things, philanthropy and also the CSR, and depending on where they are, they will like to probably swap it and use it in a manner which probably suits them the best. And therefore, I would like to raise three very, very quick issues. One, that if we were to hold businesses to account, where shall we stand on our own feet? Which means that if we are going to really ask businesses to hold themselves to account, bring more money on the table, and work accordingly to support the people, move up on education, health, inclusion, diversity, etc., etc. So that is the question number one. If we as civil society institutions are going to challenge the businesses are going to come around and ask us the similar questions, and therefore we have got to be ready enough to be answering some of those tough questions to other stakeholders. And the second question that is going to be coming to each one of us, and that will haunt us, would be as to how do we really create partnerships and collaborations whereby we stand on equal footing, listen to each other, and try and support each other. Because if you were to look at the goal number 16, which is one goal ahead of the last goal, which is the 17th, you will really find that it is all about creating partnerships, creating collaborations, and ensuring that whatever little we have, we just pull it together and try and make it bigger and better and scale it up, and then go out to the people and help and support them. Now coming precisely to the role of the business, it is in their own interest that they have to do it. There is no two opinion about it. If they don't do it, they run a very, very high risk of everything. And this risk is coming not only from within the four walls of the companies, but the risks are going to come from those two other segments, which is the community and the marketplace. So the businesses are going to be challenged, and they will be challenged more in coming years and decades, and therefore it is in their own interest that they spend money on CSR, or they partner with civil society institutions, or try to build bridges with the government, because those are the kind of things which are going to jeopardize the very existence of the businesses if they are not really very, very, strategic in terms of how they think, not only in terms of how they spend that money, but also how do they really engage with the non-state actors. And I think the final question is going to be that is it only the business which is going to make all the difference on the ground, but are there enough other stakeholders such as civil society and the government? And I, for one, have always believed that businesses have to put the money, they have to take the first mover advantage, they have to move out of their four walls and begin to talk to the civil society and the governments in a more meaningful and a fruitful manner. I'm all for the businesses putting their money, not only 2%, but maybe 5% tomorrow, 7% the day after, 10% the year after. But I am totally opposed to the idea of forcing businesses to put their money on the table in a very, very specific context where the government continues to withdraw from the welfare services and puts all its onus on the business or the private sector. I think that is something where the future is going to ask each one of us whether we will support businesses coming forward and putting money more pronouncedly withdrawing from the welfare of the people. I think that this is where the future leads us to, and we have got to be prepared enough to work with each other, to help each other out, find the common pathways, and do not really criticize each other. Because if we indulge in those kind of tactics now, in a change scenario, take it from me, we are really going to be in troubling times. The coming years and days and months would mean that how do we really talk to each other, how do we really build bridges, how do we really find some common pathways, create some templates of development both on the government side and also on the business side, and try and see to it that we put that into action together and walk hand in hand. I think this is where we are heading for, and I think we need to probably ensure that whatever we do, whatever we are trying to be doing together, it has got to be in a time-bound manner, it has got to be done together, and if we ever try to do anything in a standalone manner, I can assure you that things are not really going to be happening. And I would really leave you with a little thought, as Nisa was referring to, that, SEBI and 2%, I can tell you, and I am sure that most of you must have seen Anil Bajal committee report. And I am the privy to that, and I can tell you some of the best businesses have failed to report both on 2% and also on the SEBI mandate. And therefore, I take a lot of consolation in the fact that any public policy instrument takes a minimum of 3 to 5 years to sink and begin to produce the intended outcome. But if we were to go by the beginning of what the things are indicating us to, then I can tell you we have a long way to go. I would once again like to thank Oxfam India for giving me this opportunity to share my views, and Global Compact would always be very willing and happy and forward-looking to support each one of you and work with each one of you to ensure that the common threads and the common agenda of development, which also includes inclusion, sustainability, and equal opportunity elements, we will always stand with you and try and support you in whichever way we can. So once again, Nisa, thank you very much for inviting me to this very, very important forum, and I would be very happy to see what really transpires over the day's proceedings, and I'll be very happy to receive the outcome. And we will also be very happy to give your outcomes as large a traction as possible so that more and more people could probably know what transpired and what are the kind of common threats that we can take up together and actually action that into some kind of a strategy and going forward scenario. Thank you very much.